A morning's marketing. Bahaudin Naqshband one morning went into the great market of Bukhara with a long pole. He started to shout hoarsely until a crowd gathered, amazed at such behaviour from a man of his fame and dignity. When hundreds of people had assembled, uncertain of what to think or do, Bahaudin took up his pole and started to overturn stalls until he was surrounded by piles of fruit and vegetables. The Emir of Bukhara sent a representative to Bahaudin's house to ask him to attend court immediately to explain himself. Bahaudin said, "Let the doctors of law be present, the chief courtiers, the senior administrators, commanders of the army, and the most important merchants of this town." The Emir, together with his advisers, concluded that Bahaudin had gone mad. Deciding to humour him until they could have him committed to the abode of health, the Emir and his court summoned the people named by Bahaudin. When all were assembled, Bahaudin entered the audience hall. "You are no doubt aware, your presence, Bahaudin," said the Emir, "why you are here, and you know why the rest of us are here. Please therefore say anything which you have to say." Bahaudin replied, "Sublime gateway to wisdom, it is known to all that a man's behaviour is always taken as an index of his value. This has reached such a stage with us that a man has to do no more to gain acclaim and approval than to behave in a certain manner, no matter what his inner state may be. Conversely, if a man merely does something considered objectionable, he is regarded as being objectionable." The king said, "We do not yet understand what you are attempting to teach." Bahaudin said, "Every day, every hour, in every man, there are thoughts and inadequacies which, if given vent to, would be illustrated by actions as damaging as my actions in the marketplace. My teaching is that these thoughts and shortcomings, due to insufficient understanding, are as damaging and retarding to the community and to the individual as if he were to behave in a riotous manner, and more so." "What," said the king, "is the solution to this problem?" "The solution," said Bahaudin, "is to realize that people must be improved inwardly, not just prevented by custom from showing their coarseness and destructivity, and applauded if they do not." The entire court was so impressed by this remarkable teaching, says the chronicler, that a public holiday of 3 days was announced to enable the people to celebrate the receiving of such wisdom. Moss. A group of Bahaudin's senior disciples who had been in Persia had arrived to sit at the feet of the master. As soon as they were assembled, Bahaudin ordered them to listen to tales and recitation read by the most junior of the followers. Someone expressed surprise. The master said, "If you follow yonder track half a day's march, you will come upon a beautiful, abandoned building. You will see that one side of the magnificent dome is covered with moss. If you enter it, you will find that some of the precious tiles have slipped and lie on the floor. About the value and achievement of the building there is no doubt, but exposure to certain human and natural treatment has caused a loss of perfection. So it is with the senior disciples." Bahaudin and the Scholar. A famous scholar one day visited Bahaudin Naqshband. All the disciples expected that the murshid would engage him in discussion and refute his arguments, as he had done with all other scholastics for so many years. When, however, the scholar was settled in Bahaudin's court, the murshid showed him every consideration, and matters of human thought and divine mysteries were never mentioned. When the scholar had left, someone remarked, "How unusual that a man of words should not try to engage the Maulana in debate. This is the first one whom we have seen here who could resist the temptation, even though they all know that their arguments are always overturned." This came to the ears of Bahaudin, who said, "Nothing is strange when one knows the reason. This man who appears to be a scholar is a Sufi in disguise. He is an Abdal. This word, which people generally take to mean changed one, also means, as you will realize, someone in disguise. That is what he is. Since he is a scholar to the world and a Sufi to Sufis, how could he come here and dispute in an academic manner? As to temptation, only a scholar would be tempted to argue. A Sufi does not have the temptation, and so the question does not arise." Someone said, "We should have thought of that. Next time we will know what to make of a silent scholar." Bahaudin said to his chief disciple, "Answer him." The chief disciple said, "Alas, no. The next time a silent scholar will probably only be a stupid one intimidated by Shah's reputation." Visiting and obtaining. "Those who have visited us," said Naqshband, "and have not obtained what they really needed from that visit, have not really visited us. They will, moreover, never be sufficiently filled. From those who desire to talk to us, we have nothing to hear. To those who wish only to hear, we have nothing to say. Those who accept what they have received and do not imagine that they have received nothing will be given much more. Those who want other than what they are offered here will be unable to receive anything anywhere. Do you remember the man who was given gold when he wanted silver, and there was no silver to give him? He said, 'I cannot spend this, because it is not white.'" Bahaudin. Someone said to Bahaudin Naqshband, "You relate stories, but you do not tell us how to understand them." He said, "How would you like it if the man from whom you bought fruit consumed it before your eyes, leaving you only the skin?" Bahaudin Naqshband. The people called scholars are appalled at two things. First, they do not like the methods which we use to reach the ears of the people, because they think that what is to be communicated must be done either by intimidation or by complicated terminology. They are appalled at another thing, that we are said to be hostile to scholars. But the reality is very different. The people who are called scholars are substitutes for scholars. There are few real scholars, and a superabundance of these other people. As a result, they have acquired the generic name for scholars. In countries where there are no horses, donkeys are called horses. Storing and transmitting. It is recorded that Sheikh Abu Ali of Sind used to lecture to completely ignorant people and meditated with groups of the deaf and dumb. He said, "If you can learn at all, it is only because present and former teachers have employed the method of imparting knowledge to intelligent people, to plants, animals, idiots, and inanimate objects, as well as to self-satisfied disciples. Just as the water in the porous clay jar makes the jar wholesome and satisfied, and also slakes the thirst of the traveller, so too is our work concentrated and transmitted by what you would consider inert or unworthy vessels." How it feels to be a teacher. The Nurbakhshi writing on teachership has it, "The teacher is like a master craftsman in a country where people want craftwork, but yet imagine that it is performed, shall we say, in the dark. He is like an eagle in a cage, deprived of his main capacity of flight and sight, but employed by idlers for visual amusement. He is like a lion in a pit, baited by the ignorant and admired by those who like a tawny coat. He is like the ant, who invented a house, and hopes that he can attain his object of inducing man to copy him. He is like the crow, showing man how to bury his dead, while man watches, perplexed, knowing that he can learn, but not imagining what it is that he has to learn from what the crow is doing. All of the wise have to learn how to pass on the knowledge, but they can do this only if the student will allow himself to learn what it is and how it is that he is to learn. Technique of learning is what the teacher has first of all to teach. Unless you are prepared to study the technique of learning, you are not a student. And if your teacher advises you to learn by words or deeds or by baking bread, that is your way. Founding of a school. A Sufi of the Order of the Masters was asked, "Why did the madmen of God, who traversed the earth in strange garb doing incomprehensible things, form schools for the transmission of the teaching?" He said, "What they had to do they did, and they still do. But as far as direct transmission from them is concerned, remember the passage, 'When they were clear, there was nothing in what they said. When they were incoherent, nobody could benefit from what they said.' This is the interpretation of the cryptic poem about our knowledge in the most ancient times. If you could understand it, there was nothing there. If you could not, there was no profit, only imagination." Opulence. It is recorded that Haji Mohiuddin was studying under the ancient master Halaj when he was told, "Leave my company, work until you have attained some wealth and position, saying nothing about your connection with us, and then return." The Haji was confused and said, "But I desire the path of renunciation, not the way of opulence." Halaj answered, "You are not ready for renunciation, and not proof against opulence. In addition, your remark shows that you wish to lay down your own path. How can you then benefit from a higher guidance?" The Haji asked him, "If I am setting down my own rules, and in obeying you only do so while it suits me, how can I be expected to deviate from this rigid behavior and now take your orders in obedience, since you have characterized me as laying down my own path?" Halaj said, "Initially, it is true, you will pretend to follow the path of opulence and pretend to obey, but our hope is that this pretense will become repugnant to you." Wisdom. Sufyan said, "The wisdom which is invisible but which sustains is 100 times better than the appearance of wisdom, for that has itself to be sustained." Luxury and simplicity. The Sufi ancient Junaid taught by demonstration, through a method in which he actually lived the part which he was trying to illustrate. This is an example. Once he was found by a number of seekers sitting surrounded by every imaginable luxury. These people left his presence and sought the house of a most austere and ascetic holy man, whose surroundings were so plain that he had nothing but a mat and a jug of water. The spokesman of the seekers said, "Your simple manners and austere environment are much more to our liking than the garish and shocking excesses of Junaid, who seems to have turned his back upon the path of truth." The ascetic heaved a great sigh and started to weep. "My dear friends, shallowly infected by the outward signs which beset man at every turn," he said, "know this, and cease to be unfortunates. The great Junaid is surrounded at this moment by luxury because he is impervious to luxury, and I am surrounded by simplicity because I am impervious to simplicity.